Hey, come on!
体が踊る絶叫体験を君に約束する。超音速アクションは止まらない。
Non-stop power play. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 from Mega Drive.
Sonic 3's development? Yeah, pretty much that in a nutshell. Like so many Sonic games, it was rushed. This time thanks to a sponsorship deal, which we'll dive into when we cover Sonic and Knuckles' portion of the game. But Sonic 3 alone has enough controversies surrounding Michael Jackson. Yeah, the King of Pop had a hand in this soundtrack, but we'll get into that later. Right now, you want me to talk about the game? So let's get right to it. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 picks up literally right after Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Eggman's Death Egg is completely totaled, but instead of going out in flames, the wreckage crash lands onto Angel Island, a floating landmass that was absolutely not built to handle intergalactic wreckage. So the sheer size of the Death Egg causes Angel Island, which is supposed to be high up in the sky, to plummet into the sea. Naturally, Eggman isn't one to take the L, so he gets to work rebuilding. Step 1, he manipulates Knuckles, the island's guardian, into thinking Sonic is the real villain. And Sonic and Tails roll up, ready to finish the job and destroy the Death Egg for good. Sonic goes super and flies to the island, only to get uppercutted by Knuckles immediately, and loses all the Chaos Emeralds, which Knuckles then steals, and just like that, the game kicks off. Now, I didn't actually play Sonic 3 or Sonic & Knuckles as a kid. Yes, they are two separate games, we'll get into that later. It was the one Sonic Genesis game I never had growing up. I did get my hands on an unofficial emulator years later, thanks to my brother who bought it on Amazon for 20 bucks, but the games were separate, so they weren't the same lock-on technology powerhouse they're supposed to be. And life got hectic and sucky at the time, so I never got to beat them as a kid. Fast forward to adulthood, enter Sonic 3 Air. This is the way I played the game all the way through for the first time, and it's the best way to play this game. Tons of options, enhanced visuals, smooth gameplay, you can even tweak the soundtrack. You could go with the Sonic Origins collection, but there is a reason you might want to avoid that for now. I would highly recommend the Air version. But there's a lot to break down with this game, so let's start with the first zone, Angel Island. So let's talk about Angel Island, the very first zone of the game, and oh man, what a way to kick the game off. It starts off tropical and breezy with that upbeat soundtrack by Howard Dozen. Yeah, that Howard Dozen. Remember when we talked about Comic Zone a while back? He didn't just bring grunge rock to that game, he also helped shape Sonic 3's soundtrack. Angel Island's track might not be my absolute favorite in the game, and it's also not the same style as Comic Zone with the grunge rock. It's much more of a tropical, upbeat feel. And it absolutely fits, until the flamethrower bot shows up and lights the whole forest on fire. Yup, welcome to Sonic 3, this kind of stuff is normal. The zone's design is not as good as Emerald or Green Hill, but it still introduces the core mechanics good, and it doesn't hold your hand, so that's good as well. Oh, and Sonic 3, introduces a new move, the Insta Shield. Tap the jump button at the right moment and Sonic flashes for a split second. That's the move. It grants brief invincibility frames and extends your attack range. But it's tricky to time and master, though it is one of the best moves in the game, if you know how to use it. Emphasis on the if you know how to use it. You then get to fight the flamethrower bot at the end of Act 1 as a mini-boss. Yeah, Act 1 has bosses now. Some of them are cool, some of them suck, and some of them are straight up hilarious. This one, though, it's definitely one of the cooler ones. And then you get to Act 2. Act 2 is where things really get crazy. When Eggman shows up with the flying battery, a giant flying battleship, and starts bombing the place trying to take out Sonic. In the original version, all you had to do was hold forward, and you would run and avoid the bombs by default because apparently he's just not fast enough. However, in air, you actually have to dodge the bombs as they fly over. You can, in the settings, turn it off to where you just do it like the original version, but I like actually having to dodge the bombs better. It's much cooler. Then you get a quick Eggman boss, take it out, free the animals from the animal capsule, and then Knuckles shows up, destroys a bridge, and sends you to the next zone. Next up is the second zone, Hydrocity. Or is it Hydro City? Honestly, I don't know if it's supposed to be one word or two. Sega has never really clarified, so take your pick. Either way, it's our obligatory water level for the game. But thankfully, it's way more tolerable than Labyrinth Zone, and definitely a step up from Tidal Tempest. Still, I'd personally take Aquatic Ruin over this one any day. Water stages go, Hydrocity actually has some pretty decent ideas. There are fans that launch you upward, currents that drag you around, and a lot of hidden paths. Like this one route here I just discovered on this playthrough. It takes some finesse to reach, but if you can nail it, you can avoid a huge chunk of the underwater sections of the level. The zone itself is okay. It's not amazing, not awful. It's definitely one of the more mid entries in the Sonic 3 and Knuckles lineup. The music here is not really my jam. It's not bad, it just doesn't hit right with me. But that being said, keep your ears open during the mini-bosses. You see, I have the game set to where it'll play the Sonic 3 mini-boss theme when we're on the Sonic 3 part of the game, and the Sonic and Knuckles boss theme when we're on the Sonic and Knuckles part of the game. And tell me, does this track seem familiar to you? Or have a certain style? Don't worry, this is totally not foreshadowing. Now, before I mention this zone, I should probably mention that there are 3 zones I absolutely love in Sonic 3, but I can't pick one of them as my favorite. So consider them my top 3 zones. They can be swapped around in any order, really. The first one we're going to talk about is the one right here, Marble Garden. First off, can we talk about these ancient ruins? These backgrounds are gorgeous. Pillars crumbling, temples, cloudy mountain skies. It feels like you're racing through the remnants of a lost civilization. The music here absolutely nails the atmosphere. It's energetic, mysterious, and it fits the zone's tone perfectly. I just love this track. Gameplay-wise, Marble Garden introduces some fun mechanics, like these spinning saucer platforms. You run on top of them, and they spin you upward. It sounds super simple, but it's super fun. Get hit, and yeah, you'll lose them, but they're a blast to use while they last. Then there are these strange arrow-launching statue heads that give me flashbacks to Aquatic Ruin Zone in Sonic 2. The twist? You can actually disable these guys by bouncing on their gemstone, whatever that thing is lodged in their head. It's very satisfying, and certain parts of the zone are actually inaccessible until you destroy these guys, so they also kind of act like gatekeepers. The zone itself is massive. And since I have the time limit turned off in Sonic 3 Air, that means I got plenty of time to explore it and look around, without the fear of getting a time over, which is another perk to Sonic 3 Air. And story-wise, Eggman is definitely up to something. The Act 1 mini-boss is a drill bot which was digging up the ground, so he's looking for something here, and Eggman himself is in a drill machine. Now, the boss for this zone is awesome. Tails picks up Sonic and they chase Eggman through the air mid-flight. As Sonic jumps off to attack Eggman and Tails will catch him. It's a very hard boss. Not the hardest in the game, but it's very difficult. But it's also one of the most memorable. Then after Eggman is blown up, unfortunately he's not beaten yet, we gotta go to what is possibly the worst zone in the entire game. So after dark, Sonic and Tails land and are greeted by flashing lights, bouncing gimmicks, and a soundtrack that, well, we need to talk about it. You see, Michael Jackson is rumored to have worked on Sonic 3 Knuckles. Yeah, remember that mini-boss I showed you a while back, the mini-boss theme? Michael Jackson composed that, or at least that's the theory. Let me explain. So, there is no official confirmation that Michael Jackson worked on Sonic 3. However, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that points that he did. For starters, almost every major release of the game had to replace certain music tracks, particularly in the last 3 levels of the Sonic 3 portion of the game. That alone raises eyebrows. Not to mention there are unofficial confirmation from Sonic Team. However, these are all unofficial, not endorsed by Sega. So why was Jackson credited? Because having him work on a game like this would have been mind-blowing and probably shot the sales into the ceiling. Well, there are 2 major theories. The first theory is the technical limitations. Jackson reportedly felt that the Sega Genesis sound chip didn't do his compositions justice. And honestly, hearing Carnival Night, yeah, I would believe it. But everything else he supposedly worked on sounds amazing. So this theory has some holes. The second one is the scandal and image protection theory. Around the time of Sonic 3's development, Jackson was facing major allegations involving abuse that sent shockwaves throughout the entertainment industry. While much of the evidence was shaky, and there was strong indications of blackmail, Sega likely distanced themselves to protect their public image. It's rumored that a non-disclosure agreement prevents anyone from officially stating he worked on it, which is a real shame. Because, here's the thing, I like to give people the absolute benefit of the doubt that I can. So, unless you show me some serious evidence that they did something wrong, I'm not likely to believe they did something wrong. Whether this is a flaw or not, I don't know. But accusations are cheap. Evidence is not. And regardless what people think, his music in Sonic 3 is amazing. Except for this track, as we'll get into. I cannot stand this track. It is one of the worst themes in the game. It's irritating, it's repetitive, and it's grating. So, you've been warned. Here is the music for Carnival Night as released. Your ear's bleeding? No? You want me to do it some more? Okay, I'll stop. But they're gonna be bleeding by the time I'm done, because in Origins, they just couldn't use the prototype versions of the songs. No, they had to have Jun Senoue, who's my favorite video game composer of all time, remix the tracks. And if you want to know why you should avoid the Origins version of the game, well, take a listen. Jun, despite you being my favorite video game composer of all time, your work here sucks. So, if you ever want to play Sonic 3, do yourself a favor, play the Sonic 3 Angel Island Revisited or Sonic 3 Air, the version I'm using, and switch the music to the Sonic 3 prototype version in the options menu. This version is infinitely better. Just take a listen. So the music isn't the only thing I hate about this zone. You see, it's like they were trying to recreate the magic of Casino Night Zone, but somehow stripped away everything that made it cool. Instead of awesome, sleek city lights and pinball mechanics, you get balloons. So many balloons. They send you bouncing in every direction in ways that feel more chaotic than helpful. The enemy designs are just weird, and nothing about this zone's aesthetic clicks. It just feels like they threw it together last minute, honestly. And then there is the dreaded Barrel of Doom. So throughout the stage, there are these barrels that, unless you knew ahead of time, you can move them up and down by jumping on them, then tapping up and down, in like this rhythmic motion. But they're not required, so it's not a big deal, and there'll be a nice little trick that you could like learn as a secret. However, then comes the infamous one, the single heinous barrel. This miserable, rage-inducing hunk of spinning red and white plastic that has trapped players for decades. Even if you're playing as an adult, I got stuck here. And why? Because this one time, the game requires you to jump, then hold up and down, tapping rhythmically to move it. That's it. That's the mechanic. You can't just jump like normal. You can't brute force your way past it. No, you have to figure out that specific interaction that is never required anywhere else in the entire game. Whose idea was this? What were they thinking? Okay, so quick rant aside. Why can't Sonic attack Knuckles when he shuts off the lights? You see it right here. I have the fire shield, and for some reason, I cannot attack Knuckles for any reason. For the life of me, I cannot attack him. Why? What invisible wall is blocking my way? So Knuckles, what is his grand strategy, by the way, for stopping you in Carnival Night Zone? Flipping a light switch and walking away. Genius. Truly. Thankfully, this nightmare of a zone is over. You then go to the end of the level, hop into a cannon, and get shot into one of my favorite zones of all time. Everyone, welcome to one of the best zones in the entire game and one of my personal favorites, as well as one of the coolest. Pun entirely intended. This is easily my favorite track in the entire game, and arguably Michael Jackson's best work here. Nay, it is his best work here. Now there's a prototype version that exists, sure, but honestly, why would you listen to this? When you can listen to this. Then we have Sonic Origins and Jun Sonoe's attempt at remixing the track. Now Sonoe, most of the time you're really good at your job, but what happened? And speaking of remixes, Bentley Jones, one of my favorite artists, did an incredible version of this track called Hard Times in the Ice Cap Zone. It's got lyrics, by the way, and it's awesome. I listen to this song a lot. If you haven't checked it out, I will leave a link to it in the description. Now we get to talk about Ice Cap itself. So after the awesome snowboarding section, it drops you straight into this ice cave, which you have to pick the right paths to go forward, and sometimes even push ice blocks down to smash through walls. It's a small thing, and it's not that big of a gameplay departure, but it still gives the zone its own unique identity. Then you reach outside, and you're at this glacier, which is just as cool as everything that came before. Yes, the pun was entirely intended. In the snowy terrain, there's parts of it where there's actually piles of snow that Sonic can spin dash through and kick it up. It's such a small detail, but it's cool. So at the end of the zone, Sonic tears through, I think it's an icy glacier or snow hill, don't know, and he ends up in Launch Base. And straight off the bat, the music is pretty decent. Not Ice Cap level, but nowhere near as ear-bleeding as Carnival Night. And as expected, there's a prototype version. It's okay, but it doesn't hold a candle to Jackson's composition. And then we get to the Sonic Origins version, where June stepped in for the soundtrack revisions one last time. And he did one mid-tier remix for this zone. This is the only remix he did that doesn't make me want to claw my ears out. Now, don't get me wrong for a second. Jun Senoue is my favorite video game composer of all time. Even though I'm dogging him out a lot right now, it's just that he is good with hard rock and guitar-heavy compositions. Expecting him to replicate Jackson's FM synth-based arrangements? That's not his wheelhouse. He does contribute some decent retro tracks later in the soundtrack, but they still don't hit the same heights as his usual rock compositions. Everyone has their strengths, and Jun's is not trying to force FM synth remixes where they don't belong. For the love of God, Sega, just keep this guy on the rock music. He does amazing there. Keep him out of the FM synth and save our ears. As for the zone itself, it takes place in a massive construction site where Eggman is in the middle of rebuilding the Death Egg. And you can actually see it being built in the background, which is really cool. That said, the zone itself, it's kind of forgettable. It's not bad, but it doesn't leave a strong impression on me. You get this weird little bumper launcher things that shoot you forward, alarms you can accidentally trip, and zip lines to swing around. It all works, but it doesn't hit the same heights as, say, Ice Cap or some later zones. But then we get to the bosses. As I mentioned earlier, Sonic 3 and Knuckles was originally two separate games that connected together. If you played just Sonic 3 back in the day, Big Arms was the final boss. However, once you combined both games, Big Arms was removed from Sonic's playthrough. Only Knuckles could fight it. Thankfully, Sonic 3 Air lets you toggle the option to fight Big Arms as Sonic, so naturally, I turned that feature on for the extra challenge. And while it's nowhere near as brutal as the Death Egg robot, it's still a tough fight. Before you reach Big Arms, you have to first take down two mini-bosses. First, whatever this thing is, then a tower robot. This is more of an endurance test than an actual difficult boss fight. And then once Big Arms himself appears, it's not that hard once you know what you're doing. And after you blow it up, the Death Egg starts crashing back down onto Angel Island. Oh, and one more thing. I would like to point out that the boss theme for Big Arms is absolutely awesome. I mean, just listen to this. Alright, so now that we're on our way to the Sonic and Knuckles portion of the game, now would be a great time to go into detail as to why these are two separate games and how they combine together to make one game. In short, you could mostly blame this guy. No, seriously, blame Ronald McDonald. Watch this commercial. It will explain everything.
Where do the stars of Sega Sonic 3 go when the game's over?
Sonic? Are you guys in there?
Hey, here's a hint. They're at McDonald's in the $1.99 Sonic 3 Hamburger Happy Meal. Sonic launches with a push of a button. Tails flies who knows how high. And Robotnik barely dodges disaster. There's even this sweepstakes thing where 10,000 lucky folks will win free Sonic 3 cartridges. So if you're still looking for Sonic and his friends,
I need to report a missing hedgehog.
take the kids to McDonald's, where what you want is what you get.
You see, Sega had a deal with McDonald's to promote Sonic 3 with Happy Meal toys, and as usual, the Sonic team was racing against a deadline. But there was also another problem. Genesis cartridges had limited storage, and Sonic 3 was shaping up to be way too big of a game to fit on a single cartridge. So, Sonic Team came up with a plan. Split the game into two. This allowed them to create a much larger experience, while still meeting their deadline, and more importantly, keeping McDonald's happy by getting Sonic 3 out on time. A few months later, Sonic and Knuckles followed, complete with its own marketing push. Like this one.
We went to the big guy.
We laid the whole thing out for him.
We told him we had this great idea for a new game called Sonic and Knuckles.
It's Knuckles in his own game. Plus it has new technology.
Lock-on technology.
So you can play Knuckles in Sonic 2 and 3.
It's revolutionary.
He just laughed at us. So we sold the whole thing to Sega?
Who's laughing now? Batman!
Sega.
As you saw, Sonic and Knuckles had lock-on technology, so you could combine it with Sonic 3 to make a full experience. It even worked with Sonic 2, and if you put Sonic and Knuckles on Sonic 2, you would actually be able to play as Knuckles in Sonic 2. Cool, right? Well, now it's time to get back to talking about video games, with our next zone and the first zone of Sonic and Knuckles. Well, welcome to Mushroom Hill Zone, the very first stage of the Sonic and Knuckles portion of the game. And surprisingly, there are no acid trips around here, just a bunch of giant fungi you can bounce off of. The biggest reveal, however, is the fact that Knuckles is alive. You can actually find his hiding spot where he pops out of. It leads to extra special stages, but we'll break those down when we actually talk about the special stages. The most interesting gimmick of the zone is how the zone gradually shifts through seasons. Early on, everything's bright and lush. But as you get closer to Eggman's weather machine, the landscape starts looking more like autumn. And then the deeper you go, the more barren and lifeless it gets. It's an interesting concept. Now, I get this zone had a lot riding on it. It had to serve as the first level of Sonic and Knuckles as a standalone game, and also function as the 7th level in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. That's not a small order. While it does its job fine, it's just kind of forgettable for me. Not bad, but not particularly exciting. Don't worry, next zone though is pretty awesome. Now this is a zone. Even if I died a lot here, Flying Battery is one of the most intense and chaotic stages in the game. And that's not a bad thing. Remember that bombing run at the end of Angel Island Zone? Yeah, this is that ship. You're now tearing apart the very battleship that lit the forest on fire. And it's glorious. I like to call this the stop hitting yourself zone, because everywhere you turn, the ship is actively destroying itself. Missiles misfire, lasers backfire, and even the Act 1 mini-boss, you beat it by making it punch itself. Seriously, Eggman, what was the plan here? Yes, I shall build a massive flying fortress to destroy Sonic, and also design it so it destroys itself in the process. He will never see it coming. So why it's not the most logically designed zone, it's a blast to play, and pretty challenging. The level is full of traps, vertical climbs, and tight timing, and the music is awesome. Just listen to this. At the end of the zone, you have to escape the ship as it explodes around you, then battle Eggman on the crumbling remains. It's an awesome finish to a zone that never stops throwing chaos your way. Interesting bit of information is Flying Battery was originally meant to come before Ice Cap Zone. The plan was for Sonic to rip a panel off the ship and use it as a snowboard to slide into the next level. The transition was scrapped, but it would have been so cool had it made it into the final game. Next stop is Sandopolis Zone. Oh boy. Okay, let's address the real mystery of Sandopolis Zone, and that's how does this island even work? On one end, we have an icy wasteland with massive glaciers. On the other, a desert. This isn't some spawning continent. Angel Island is supposed to be small. How exactly does it sustain both a frozen tundra and a scorching desert without completely breaking reality? I know, 90s video game logic, but this one really pushes it. First, let's talk about Act 1. You start outside the pyramid, making your way across sand, waterfalls, shifting dunes, and block puzzles. It's not bad per se, but it's not particularly fun either. Scorpion enemies pop up here and there, and the level itself does a decent job of setting up the ancient ruins aesthetic, which you know I like. It's just nowhere near as good as, say, Marble Garden Zone, or even Aquatic Ruin Zone from Sonic 2. Then there's the Act 1 boss, and wow, this thing is painfully stupid. So, you can't beat him in traditional sense. Hit him in the head all you want, and he won't die. Can you guess how you kill him? Well, watch this. That's right. You drown him in the sand. It's not hard. You can bash him in the head for hours and you'll get nowhere. No, you beat him by knocking him into the sand pit. I don't have any more words for this. Next act, Then comes Act 2, and things take a turn for the infuriating. You enter the pyramid and ghosts start appearing. These nuisances start small, but gradually grow more aggressive. The only way to stop them is to keep the lights on. If the torches go out, they become an actual threat. Unless, of course, you toggle the option in Sonic 3 Air that prevents them from attacking, which makes things a whole lot easier. But imagine playing this back in the Genesis days. If I had played this on my original Genesis, this would have been a nightmare. Also, this act is a maze. I got lost a lot. Ice Cap Act 1 had a little bit of a maze-like structure, but it was easily manageable. Here, it's easy just to wander around aimlessly, accidentally looping back into the same rooms over and over again. And the boss of this zone? Yeah, super easy. Just watch. Oh, we need to talk about the music too. It's not bad, but it's not memorable either. It does the job, but it won't stick with you. Next! After getting out of the boring as heck zone that was Sandopolis, you head deep underground into, well, a lava reef. Whatever that's supposed to be. But honestly, it doesn't matter. This place is awesome. Right away, the tone has shifted. This zone is fiery, intense, and packed with danger. And in certain areas, you can even spot the death egg looming in the background, which is just awesome. Then comes Act 2, which changes things dramatically. The zone becomes crystallized, and the lava cools, and it makes this crystal cavern, and it's awesome. The music here is awesome. It's the only place in the game where I noticed the difference between Act 1 and Act 2. As technically each act has its own remix of the zone theme, however, I rarely ever notice, except for here. Act 1 is this upbeat, funky rhythm. Here, take a listen. We get to Act 2, which I don't like near as much as Act 1, but it's still pretty good. It's this slowed down, almost ominous sounding track. End of Act 2, things get interesting, because we actually get to see Knuckles and Eggman working together really well. First, Knuckles knocks Sonic off what I think is a staircase into this rock formation. Oh, and then Eggman fires up the Death Egg and turns most of the rocks and crystals into lava. Then proceeds to start firing missiles at Sonic that he has to outrun. Then, at the bottom of a lava waterfall, you have to fight Eggman's new robotic mech. And you can't hurt it. But the mech's own bombs can. So, how you beat this boss is you literally wait for it to blow itself up. I'm serious. You just wait for it to blow itself up. You can't actually hurt the thing. It's even funnier because you can get a fire shield right before this boss fight, and it just makes it a complete joke. But, with that out of the way, we get to talk about another awesome zone that I really like. This is it. After all the chaos Knuckles has put Sonic through, Hidden Palace Zone finally gives us the chance to fight him. And yeah, it's super easy. But before we get into the battle, let's talk about the zone itself. Because honestly, there's not that much to say. It's incredibly short, you run around for a bit, take in the scenery, and that's about it. At least the music here is solid. It's actually pretty good. Too bad you won't hear that much of it. The biggest thing that stands out is the mural in the background. It depicts a mysterious prophecy. It seems to be foreshadowing a major battle against a golden hedgehog and a giant monster. What exactly is it teasing? It's either a warning about Eggman's next big scheme, or it's hinting at the villain of the next game. I'm 95% sure it's setting up for the next game, and my fan theory is it's a prophecy of chaos in the final battle between Super Sonic and Chaos at the end of the next Sonic game. Sonic Adventure. At least that's what I choose to believe. Then comes the big twist. Eggman betrays Knuckles. Turns out Knuckles was guarding the Master Emerald the whole time, just in case you weren't paying attention. And that's exactly what Eggman has been searching for. See, that's why he was digging in Marble Garden and in Lava Reef. He was trying to dig up Hidden Palace and find it. Honestly, I'm surprised he didn't just ask Knuckles where the emerald was, because you think a guy with a 300 IQ could simply trick this idiot into showing him the location of the Master Emerald? I mean, seriously, it can't be that hard. Knuckles, of course, tries to stop Eggman, but he fails. And for the first time, he realized he's been tricked. Defeated but determined, he teams up with Sonic and Tails and leads them to the next zone. That being Sky Sanctuary. It's only one act, like Hidden Palace, but it is completely awesome. First, we witness the Death Egg launch into space. Knuckles helps you out by activating a bridge. However, he's too weak to continue, so it's up to you and Tails to finish the job. You have to run as fast as possible and try to reach the Death Egg before it escapes into orbit. Throughout the zone, you will encounter a Metal Sonic type robot called Mecha Sonic. And he reuses two boss fights from previous Genesis games. First is the Wrecking Ball from Sonic 1. It's a nod to the very first boss in the entire Genesis trilogy. Then you get the weird little balloon pod from Sonic 2. It's slightly trickier, but it's still perfectly manageable. Then you get a one-on-one fight with him, which is also very easy if you know how to use the Insta-Shield. Overall, he's not that hard, but take note, he doesn't blow up and die at the end. That'll be important later. As another really cool detail in Sonic 3 Air, you can actually enable an option that plays the original boss music from each respective game as you fight. It's a small but really cool detail. Speaking of music, Sky Sanctuary's theme is fantastic. It fits the ancient ruin and sky floating's aesthetic perfectly. Here, take a listen. As for the level itself, I really like the aesthetic, the floating ruins, and I just love ancient ruins. We all know this. You jump across crumbling platforms, grab onto weird vine-like structures, and the only enemies here are Mecha Sonic and the Egg Robos, which Eggman releases from the Death Egg at the start of the level. Overall, gameplay-wise and aesthetic-wise, it's really fun. And it leads into the game's final zone. I hope you're ready. So here we are, Death Egg Zone, and I gotta hand it to the game. Compared to Sonic 2, where the Death Egg lasted all of 2 seconds before throwing you into a boss rush with 0 rings, Sonic & Knuckles actually gives you a full-blown 2-act level. So it has plenty of extra real estate. Act 1 takes place inside the Death Egg, surrounded by shifting gravity panels, conveyor belts, and enough mechanical hazards to make your head spin off. It's brutal, no question. The challenge curve here is extremely steep, and it demands you to focus and pay attention unlike any other zone in the game. This is not a zone I revisit unless I'm in a playthrough, but I definitely respect it. It's one of those beat it once and don't touch it again until you do another playthrough of the game kind of zones. Act 2 flips the script completely. You move to the outside of the Death Egg, and suddenly you're platforming through the stars with the planet looming below, and it's an absolutely beautiful and awesome visual. Honestly, this whole place gives me major Death Star vibes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the parallel was no accident.
No copyright law in the universe is going to stop me!
The sense of scale in this level is massive, and overall, if it wasn't so brutal, I would probably like it a lot more. It's just so hard that I hardly ever revisit it. As for the music, it's perfectly serviceable. Nothing that sticks in your head quite like Ice Cap or Flying Battery, but it does its job very well of preparing you for the final confrontation and setting the stage for this technological marvel of a death machine. So now we get to the final boss gauntlet, and first you have this weird little robot that drops, I don't know what to call these things, drone bombs? All you have to do is swap the gravity and hit it with its own bombs until eventually it takes itself out. Super easy. Then comes the real fight. And you've got exactly 1 chance to keep your rings. If you made it here without dying in the gravity bot, which, let's face it, who died in the gravity bot? Congratulations, you get to face Eggman's final mech with little cushion. If not, well, tough, you're starting the boss with 0 rings, just like old times. Phase 1 is just that bizarre hand clamp robot from Lava Reef, but this time, you can actually see the robot in the background. The hands come down and try to crush you, but joke's on them, just spin dash in place, and you'll shred through those arms without even moving. Then comes Phase 2, and oh boy, this part always wrecks me every time I play it. You have to have super precise platforming. Fire jets out of his nose, and there's instant death pit right behind you. It's a gauntlet, and the stakes are sky high. The only way I've found to consistently dodge the Master Emerald laser, by the way, is to jump upon the Master Emerald, as is the place where you damage it, at just the right time so you'll bounce back and dodge the laser. And yes, that's also how you damage the mech. But just so you know, if you miss it by a single pixel, into the death pit with you. Finally, after narrowly surviving all of that, Eggman makes one last bolt with the Master Emerald, and you get a chase sequence to finish off the fight. This boss is actually pretty easy, because Eggman doesn't attack you. The only danger here is falling off the back edge, which, as long as you're halfway competent with Sonic's controls, isn't gonna happen. I beat this on my first try. Now, if only that were the true final boss. You see, in order to fight the true final boss, you need all 7 Chaos Emeralds. And if you want to see the true ending, you need all 7 Super Emeralds. Needless to say, I have never seen the true ending, but I have fought the final boss before. It's a stupid requirement, I know. And if you want to know why, well, let me explain the special stages to you. I feel like now would be as good a time as ever to talk about the special stages. You see, that's how you get the Chaos Emeralds in this game. Apparently when Knuckles stole all the Chaos Emeralds, he threw them in these special stages. Don't know how or why, but that's what he did. Now, unlike Sonic 2, where you access the special stages by hitting checkpoints with 50 rings, Sonic 3 and Knuckles switches things up a bit. This time, you hunt down giant golden rings hidden throughout the level. Jump into one and boom, you're launched into a fully 3D special stage. Now, these stages, to me, in my mind, feel like they're probably prototypes for what would have been Sonic 3 originally. You see, Sonic 3 was going to be a 3D platformer with an isometric view. Look, I can't pronounce the word for the life of me, but think of Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo. But due to the hardware limitations of the Genesis, it was scrapped. Though there was a Sonic 3D Blast on the Saturn and Genesis, it wasn't that good of a game, and we'll talk about it someday. But today we're talking about Sonic 3. Once inside, your job is simple, in theory. Collect all the blue spears and avoid the red ones. Seems simple, right? Problem. The longer you're in here, the faster you go. What starts as you going for a simple jog turns to Sonic going super speed, and you barely being able to tell where you're going. It's brutal, and if you touch one red spear, guess what? You can't just hop back into that ring. You gotta find another one somewhere in the level. It is hard. Now, as for how much I like these special stages in particular, they don't hold a candle to CDs. Sonic CD still has the best special stages in my opinion. Now, Sonic 3 and Knuckles land somewhere in the middle. They're nowhere near as bad as Sonic 1's acid trips, but they're nowhere near the quality of CD. In the end, I can tolerate them, but that's about it. That is until you get to the Super Emerald stages. You see, the Golden Rings and the Chaos Emeralds, they only happen in the first half of the game. You see, when you get to the second half, you can find rainbow rings. And you lose your Chaos Emeralds, but get the ability to win them back as Super Emeralds, empowered by the Master Emerald. Sounds cool, right? Well, guess what? These special stages are complete and utter bullshit! I hate the Super Emerald stages. They are the absolute worst special stages in all of classic Sonic. Okay, that rant is done. Move on, I'd like to point out that Jun Sonoe, my favorite video game composer of all time, actually composed the special stage theme. Nowhere near his best work, but it's still pretty okay. Now I think would be a good time to mention that there are many games in this game that you can access the same way you would access the special stages in Sonic 2. I don't know the exact ring requirements. I think it's 20. You go to a checkpoint, go past it, and then jump into the sparkly things. There are 3 of them. And other than the slot machine one, I have no idea how to describe these, so I'm just gonna show them to you. And yeah, they're okay. You can get elemental shields in some of them, and bonus rings. But other than that, there's not really a reason to come here. They're okay, but not something I stop and do that often. I do like the slot machine one though. That one's actually pretty fun sometimes. Okay, so now that we're done talking about the special stages and minigames, let's talk about the true final boss. You only need the 7 Chaos Emeralds to access it. You do not need the Super Emeralds. The Super Emeralds only get you a special ending. And I am not gonna put myself through all the pain of gathering all 7 Super Emeralds just for a special ending. Sorry. But I will do the boss. So, let's talk about it. So, you fight the final boss in the place known as Doomsday Zone. And it's not a normal stage. This is the very first supersonic final boss in the entire series. You fly through an asteroid field as supersonic, and the first phase has you collecting rings to stay alive as you pursue Eggman and the stolen Master Emerald. So phase 2 is when you catch up to Eggman's whatever this mech or ship is, and how you damage it is you trick the missiles he fires at you into hitting his head as they home in on you. It's really not that hard, and it's kind of funny because it almost feels like a callback to the flying battery mini-boss. Just make it hit itself. Then, most of his mech explodes and you enter phase 3, where you have to chase him down and just smash into his ship whenever you get close enough. There's actually rings in this section, so there's nowhere near as big of a danger as running out of rings as there is in the previous phase. And this is probably the easiest part of the entire fight. Blow up his mech, retrieve the Master Emerald, and if you have the Super Emerald, you will return it to Knuckles. If you don't, well, it just falls to the ground, and I'm hoping Knuckles will eventually retrieve it out of the ocean. And with that, cue credits. Now, I may not be able to show you the true ending because I don't have the Super Emeralds, but Origins has a very fitting and humorous ending, so I'll show you that instead. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention the music for Doomsday Zone. This is the very first supersonic final boss track, and it's just okay. Later games have way better final boss tracks. This one, yeah. It could have been better. I mean, Big Arms' theme is way better, but it's not horrible, and it's serviceable. So now that I've done Sonic's story, what do I think of it? Well, it was pretty good. Easily the longest campaign in any classic Sonic game. It had plenty of highs and very few lows. My top 3 zones, which I constantly replay in Sonic 3 Air's level select, are Marble Garden, Ice Cap, and Lava Reef. They are tied across all categories: gameplay, exploration, and music. And of course, aesthetic. And meanwhile, the worst zone is easily Carnival Night. I just don't like this zone. The rest are just mid. Not bad, but not great either. Unfortunately, I'm not done yet. I still got 2 more characters to talk about. That being Knuckles and Tails. See, there's 3 separate story campaigns, and each playable character gets one. We just covered all of Sonic's campaign, and he has the Instant Shield, as we discussed, as well as the Elemental Shields. Now, I already explained these in my Sonic 1 review. However, I feel like I probably should go over them one more time to make sure we're all on the same page here. The Bubble Shield lets Sonic breathe underwater and bounce when pressing jump. The Thunder Shield attracts rings and grants a double jump. The Fire Shield grants fire immunity, and lets Sonic dash through the air. You're probably wondering why I thought to bring this up over an hour into the video. Well, it's because the other characters don't get these abilities. You see, they can still collect them and they'll still provide protection, but they don't get the double jump or the bounce or the fire dash. However, the Thunder Shield does still attract rings, so that's cool. Alright, so first let's talk about Tails' campaign. It's basically just Sonic's story with one major difference. He can fly instead of using the Insta Shield, or gaining special abilities from the Elemental Shields, and he relies on his flight ability, which completely changes how you approach each zone. I tested him out in some of my favorite levels, and it was a totally different experience. You have to play with an entirely new mindset. Platforming sections that are tricky with Sonic are trivial with Tails, and there are all kinds of new paths and secrets I didn't even know existed until I started flying around with Tails. Honestly, that's the biggest draw playing as Tails, the exploration. You can reach all kinds of places that Sonic and Knuckles never could. There's only one real downside, and that's he can't go super unless he collects all the Super Emeralds. So yeah, you have to put yourself through the extra challenge if you want that transformation, which kinda sucks, but is understandable when everything else is so easy. Other than that, there's nothing really to say about Tails. Okay, so originally I had a whole section of the video dedicated just to Knuckles, his story, and how his levels were remixed, and the difference between his levels and Sonic's levels. However, that was a really long section of the video, and this video is already over an hour long. So if you guys want a Knuckles story video, just leave a comment down below, and if I get enough of them, I'll do a whole video solely on Knuckles' story. However, here is a streamlined version and cut down drastically to give you the basic rundown. So to start, Knuckles' story actually takes place after Sonic's. See, he's just enjoying some well-earned downtime, having a nice afternoon, until an egg robo shows up, drops a bomb in front of him, and completely ruins his afternoon. Naturally, Knuckles does what anyone would do in this situation. Proceeds to hunt that robot down all across his island with a vengeance so he can kick his teeth in. So Knuckles' story is way different than Sonic's. For one, he gets his own unique level layout. Entire areas built specifically for his gliding and wall climbing abilities. Yeah, Knuckles can glide and climb walls. There are even sections that only he can access, making the campaign feel like a remix of the game, in my opinion. It's a lot more distinctive than Tails, who just gets a reskin of Sonic's campaign. Now, the coolest part about Knuckles' story, in my opinion, is how it directly ties into Sonic's story. Remember how Mecha Sonic didn't actually explode at the end of Sky Sanctuary? Yeah, turns out he's still alive. You see, Mecha Sonic is actually the main villain of Knuckles' campaign. The Egg Robo appears to be working for him and captures Knuckles and brings him to Mecha Sonic. And how does Mecha Sonic thank the Egg Robo for this? Oh, by killing him, of course! Now, Knuckles, who is understandably very mad that he didn't get to take out the Egg Robo himself, is now gonna take all of his pent-up rage and use it to tear apart Mecha Sonic. Final boss fight is actually really cool. After a brief brawl, Mecha Sonic goes super by tapping into the Master Emerald's power, because apparently Mecha Sonic stole it at some point. Yeah, Knuckles really needs a guard dog or state-of-the-art security system or something to keep stuff like this from happening. I mean, it's not the last time the Master Emerald gets stolen. Believe me on that. So, what do I think of Knuckles' campaign overall? Well, I don't like it that much. Look, those that are a fan of this campaign, don't take offense to this, but I really didn't like it. Just at all, and I didn't really have that much fun with it. Mostly because of how difficult it was. I will always choose to play Sonic's campaign every single time whenever I replay Sonic 3 Air. Unless I have to do it for a video or something, I'm probably never, ever, ever again gonna touch Knuckles' campaign. So, did I like Sonic 3 and Knuckles? Well, as you all know, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I never really got to play this game as a kid. I never had it on my original Genesis, so there's zero nostalgia clouding my judgment. And with that in mind, yeah, I really like it. It's not perfect. There are flaws, weird level spikes, and some odd design choices here and there, and very, very questionable music, but also some badass music. But it's still a Sonic game at heart. It's fast, it's fun, and even without childhood memories, it's an amazing game. I would like to point out right now, though, that I prefer Sonic 2 over Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but I will definitely be coming back to this game and revisiting it. Sonic 3 Knuckles is just that good. And with that, I think I should be wrapping up. As a YouTuber, I am obligated to ask you to like and subscribe. And if you want to chat with the members of Saturnian Dragon Studios, well, there should be a Discord link in the description. If YouTube won't let me put it there, I'll put it in a YouTube comment in the comment section. And with that, the Anti-Gamer Slayer is out.